You ready? Bismillah.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء وخزلها كل شيء وذللها كل شيء وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء يا نور يا قدوس يا نور يا قدوس يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحت كل اسم. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النكام. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعم. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء. اللهم اغفر لكل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفئ بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك وأن توزعني شكرك وأن تلحمني ذكرك. اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاطئ متذلل خاشع أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بك اسمك راضيا قانعا وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا. اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته وأزم فيما عندك رغبته. اللهم أزم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وسحر أمرك وغلب كحرك وجرت قدرتك ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لكبائحي ساترا ولا لشيء من عملي الكبيه بالحسن مبدلا خيرا. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك ظلمت نفسي ظلمت نفسي ظلمت نفسي وتجرأت بجحدي وسكنت إلى كديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترت وكم من فاضح من البلاء أكلتا، وكم من إسار وكيتا، وكم من مكروه دفعتا، وكم من ثناء جميل لست أحدا له نشرتا. اللهم أزم بلائي، وأفرط بي سوء حالي، وكسرت بي أعمالي، وكدأت بي أغلالي، وحبسني عن نفعي بعد أعمالي، وخدتني الدنيا بغرورها، ونفسي بجنايتها، ومثالي يا سيدي، فأسألك بعزتك أن لا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء أملي وفئالي، ولا تفزحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري، ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي، ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي، وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا، ولي في جميع الأمور أتوفا. إلهي وربي من لي غيرك، أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي، أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي، ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي، فغرني بما أحوى وأسأله على ذلك القضاء، فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعض حدودك، وخالفت بعض أوامرك، فلك الحمد علي في جميع ذلك، ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاؤك، وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك. وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي، معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستكيلا مستغفرا منيبا مكرا مذعنا مؤترفا. لا أجد مفرا من مكان مني، ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري، غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في سعة من رحمتك. اللهم فاقبل عذري، وارحم شدة ضري، وفكني من شد مساكي. يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني، يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني، يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني، ورقة جلدي ودقة عزمي. يا من بدا خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي، هبني لابتداء كرمك وصانف برك بي. يا إلهي وسيدي وربي، أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك، وبعد ما انطوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك، ولا حجابه لساني من ذكرك، واعتقده ضميري من حبك، وبعد صدق ترافي ودعائي خاضعا ربوبيتك. هيهات، أنت أكرم من أن تزيأ من ربيتا، أو تبعد من أدنيتا، أو تشرد من آويتا، أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمته. وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدا وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقا وبشكرك مادحا على قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققا وعلى زمار حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة وعلى جوارح سأت إلى أوطان تأبدك طائعة وشارت باستغفارك مزئنا ما هكذا الظن بك ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم يا رب يا كريم يا رب يا كريم يا رب وأنت تعلم ضعفي قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها على أن ذلك بلاء مكروه قليل مكسور يسير بقاء كثير مدته فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل مكوء المكاره فيها وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك وحاز ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض يا سيدي فكيف لي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحكيم المسكين المستكين يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي لأي الأمور إليك أشكو ولما من هذا الجوع أبكي لأليم العذاب وشدته أمنت للبلاء مدته فلئن سيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك فحبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك وحبني صبرت على حر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي عفوك فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لئن تركتني ناطقا لأزجن إليك بين أهلها زجيج العاملين ولأصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين ولا أبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين ولا أنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين يا غاية آمال العارفين يا غياث المستغيثين يا غياث المستغيثين يا غياث المستغيثين يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين ويا إله العالمين أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته وذاك طعم عذابها بمعصيته وخبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته وهو يزج إليك زجيج مؤمل لرحمتك ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك يا مولاي فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك؟ أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك؟ أم كيف يهلكه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه؟ أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفه؟ أم كيف يتكلكل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقا؟ أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا رب؟ أم كيف يرجو فضلك في إتكه منها فتتركه هيهات؟ ما ذلك الظن بك ولا المعروف من فضلك ولا مشبه لما عملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك، فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحديك وكزيت به من إخلاد معانديك. لا جعلت النار كلها بردا سلاما وما كان لأحد فيها مكرا ولا مقاما، لكنك تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين، وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين، وأن تجلى ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما. أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون. إلهي وسيدي فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالكزية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها، أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل ذنب أذنبت وكل قبيح أسررت وكل جهل عملت كتمته أو أعلنت أخفيته أو أزهرت وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحي، وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم، وبرحمتك أخفيت وبفضلك سترت، وأن توفر حظي من كل خير أنزلت أو إحسان فزلت أو بر نشرت أو رزق بسطت أو ذنب تغفر أو خطأ تستر. يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب. يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك ركي، يا من بيده ناصيتي، يا أليما بزري ومسكنتي، يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي. يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب. أسألك بحقك وقدسك وعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي من الليل والنهار بذكرك مأمورا وبخدمتك موصولا، وأعمالي عندك مقبولا، حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا، وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا. يا سيدي، يا من عليه مأولي، يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي. يا ربي، يا ربي، يا رب، يا ربي، يا ربي، يا رب، يا ربي، يا ربي، يا رب. كوي على خدمتك جوارحي، واجدد على الأزيمة جوانحي، وهب لي الجد في خشيتك، والدوام في اتصال بخدمتك، حتى أسرح إليك في ميادين السابقين، وأسرع إليك في البارزين، وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين، ودنو منك دنو المخلصين، وخافك مخافة الموقنين، واجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين. اللهم من أرادني بسوء فأرده، ومن كادني فكده، واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك، واقربهم منزلة منك، وخسهم زلفة لديك. فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك، وجودني بجودك، واعطف علي بمجدك، واحفظني برحمتك، واجعل لساني بذكرك لحجاب، وقلبي بحبك متيما، ومن علي بحسن إجابتك، وأكلني أسرتي، واغفر زلتي، فإنك كزيت على عبادك بعبادتك، وأمرته بدعائك، وزمنت لهم الإجابة. فإليك يا ربي نسبت وجهي، وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي، فبعزتك استجب لي ودعائي، وبلغني مناي، ولا تعطأ من فضلك رجائي، واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي. يا سريع الرضا، يا سريع الرضا، يا سريع الرضا، اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء، فإنك فعال لما تشاء. يا من اسمه دواء، وذكره شفاء، وطاعته غنى، ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء، وصلاحه البقاء. يا سابغ النعم، يا دافع النكم، يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام، يا عالما لا يعلم، صل على محمد وآل محمد، وافعل بما أنت أهله. وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله، وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. اللهم صل
اللهم
على
صل على
محمد
محمد
وآل
وآل
محمد.
محمد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Can the brothers and sisters hear me? It doesn't seem like my video is showing.
Islamic Sheikh, your video, yeah, I can see your video.
Okay.
Everything's fine.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. الخطبة 28 هو إن أخوف ما أخاف عليكم اثنتان اتباع الهوى وطول الأمل. Inshallah, in this last session on khutbah number 28, we look at a couple more lines of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam in regards to this khutbah, that in which he really, as I've said again and again, shakes all of us, and anyone who might be a little asleep, he wakes them up from their sleep towards the akhirah. He says, after those, I would say, very important lines of where he says, whoever the haqq doesn't benefit, batil will harm them, and whoever hidayah, huda, guidance, doesn't set them straight on the right path, then misguidance will guide them to destruction. He says that you have been ordered to migrate, and you've been told what your provisions are. After he says all of this, he concludes. There's one or two things he says here. Number one, he mentions two things that scare him the most when it comes to the Muslim Ummah. He says, وَإِنَّ أَخْوَفْ مَا أَخَافُ عَلَيْكُمْ. The most fearful of the things out there that I fear for you is two things. Number one, اتباع الهوى وطول الأمل. Following the hawa and طول الأمل. طول means something that is long. Yeah, طول means length, longness, let's say. How long something is, right? The longness of your hopes. What does that mean exactly? I would say we can translate that to far-fetched high hopes. Okay. Ittiba'ul hawa, to follow the hawa. Hawa, of course, means a desire that a person has. And so here, the desires that a person has that go back to yourself, So following yourself, following the desires of yourself. So he says there are two things that are really worrying me about the Muslim Ummah. Number one is the fact that people will follow their hawa. They will follow whatever their desires demand them to. And number two is to have high hopes, but not just any high hopes, those high hopes that are far-fetched, and we will discuss what is meant exactly by them. The best person to go to explain to us what he means by these two is Imam Ali himself in Nahjul Balagha again. Somewhere else he uses the same wording when he expands on these two matters a little bit more, what he means exactly by them. He mentions himself. In khutbah 42, he says, Ayyuhan nas, O people, there are two things that I'm afraid of when it comes to you. Inna akhwafa ma akhafu alaykum ithnan. I am scared of two things in regards to you. And then he says the same two things, but then he expands on them. He says, ittiba'ul hawa wa tulul amal. فَأَمَّا اتِّبَاعُ الْهَوَى فَيَصُدُّ عَنِ الْحَقِّ. As for following one's desires, it blocks, obstructs, and hinders one from the truth. Now, why is that the case? Well, I think if a person thinks about this, they'll understand why. When what matters to us, when the criterion becomes what makes me feel good, what I like, what I desire. If that becomes the criterion, everything else becomes secondary to that, of course. And so if I have to choose between reaching the desire, fulfilling it, and satisfying it, versus not satisfying it, but at the same time, for example, not trampling other people's rights. For example, not trampling the rights that Allah has over me. Yeah, I will choose the first. I will choose making it to the destination of satisfying the desire. So, in and of itself, brothers and sisters, here Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, he is explaining why following the desires can be a problem, because they can get in the way of you and haqq. Who says whatever I desire, whatever I want is in accordance with haqq? Lots of times it's not. Haqq is not there. All that is there is my satisfaction, not Allah's satisfaction. And as was mentioned before, wherever you don't have haqq, there's batil, right? There is no in between ground here. There is no middle ground. So here, when the criterion becomes whatever I want, that means everything else can go out the window. It doesn't matter as long as I get to that primary aim of mine and goal of mine. Yeah. And so sometimes it will block me from the haqq. So right here, I do have to explain that this idea that any desire that we fulfill and satisfy is wrong, this idea in notion is not necessarily true. Mankind has been created as a material being with needs, with desires, and there are halal ways and permissible ways to satisfy them. Okay? That is the whole test. Allah puts us in here with needs, with desires, and pleasures that we try to satisfy. Allah wants to see, are we going to satisfy it in the right way or in the wrong way? Right? That's the whole point of this. So this idea that, oh, we have needs, we have desires, it's horrible, needs and desires are bad, in and of themselves, that's not true. No, these are a means for our growth if we address them and satisfy them in the right way. Yeah. So, ittiba'ul hawa, to be a follower of the hawa, is a problem because it sometimes will block us from the haqq when my desire is not in accordance with and in line with haqq. So that's one thing he mentions and what we can get out of it, that just satisfying a desire necessarily isn't bad, but the fact that it can get in the way of me and haqq is a problem. Number two, he mentions وَأَمَّا طُولُ الْأَمَلِ, as for having high, far-fetched hopes, فَيُنْسِي الْآخِرَةِ. This is very important. For those of us out there who are super successful in our studies, in our careers, in our hobbies, in anything that we like, anything we do, anything we're involved in, yeah? طُولُ الْأَمَلِ. It doesn't matter if you are an artist, if you are an athlete, if you are whatever you are, okay? When you have high hopes and far-fetched high hopes at that, what happens is you will look at the goal without taking into consideration anything else, without taking into consideration any hurdles, which not isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? When we want to shoot for the stars, that's good. We want to work hard and not let anything get in the way of us reaching our goals, especially the loftier spiritual goals. Why not? I mean, that's the best. So what is going on here? What's wrong here? Well, when that destination, that has to do with dunya, of course, whether it's success in my career, whether it's, just making sure that I buy, I don't know, every, I'm going to give a dumb example here, every Lego set out there. I want to make every Lego model out there. Okay, why? Because I'm good at it. If I want to be the best athlete ever to the point where I'm going to hurt myself on the way, physically even, getting injured and so on. When I look at things like this, and that is the only goal, Imam Ali alayhi salam here, he says, when you overdo it when it comes to high hopes, shooting for the stars is one thing, right? but shooting for the end of the universe is something else. You will forget the akhirah. Why? Because lots of the things and aims and goals that we determine for ourselves, the amount of time we need to reach them is more than that of a lifespan of ours. Okay? Someone wants to reach 9 figures in their bank account. Well, excuse me, sir, you don't have that much of a lifetime. Yeah, if you're going to live 1,500 years, maybe you'd have that opportunity. But, and by the way, lots of people, even if they live for 1,500 years, they still won't make it. But I'm just saying, for some, to reach that point, it's impossible with the time that we have in this life and all the other commitments that we have in this life. Imam Ali says it beautifully. He says, Yunsi al-akhirah. When you have high hopes to the point where it's just too much, like the guy is like 65 years old, but the way, or 75 years old, but the way that he's so invested in Wall Street and just following everything, to like every little thing that's happening there and forgetting their akhirah, like, sir, you are going to be alive maybe 10, 15 years more, maybe. Inshallah, Allah gives you 100 more years of life, but usually the average lifespan won't go over 100 years, okay? If not sooner than that. You can't get so preoccupied in what's going on in this life of yours that you forget the akhirah. But when we've set certain goals, when we have certain hopes in this life that are not too realistic, that are far-fetched, what happens is we have no choice but to compromise on this aspect of our life, which is to understand where on that timeline of age we're at. So you'll find people that are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, they have an awesome plan for life if they're going to live for another 200 years, if they're going to live for another 300 years. So what happens with these unrealistic high hopes sometimes is that what they do is they will set certain goals for you that you will never reach unless you were to outlive your lifespan. Yeah. As a result, you haven't done enough for your akhirah. They make these high hopes make it seem like, okay, this life is the ultimate eternal life that I'm in right now, and as a result, that's what I'm going to work for, this life, and I will not, and I will be careless regarding the akhirah. Yeah. So Imam Ali alayhi salam, he has these two worries. Now, we have some verses of the Quran, as I've said again and again, the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they will be echoing what the verses of the Quran say. We have verses of the Quran that are reminding us of these matters. Number one, for example, Surah Sad, verse 26. It says, وَلَا تَتَّبِعِ الْهَوَى فَيُضِلَّكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Different wording a little bit, but it's the same concept that Amir al-Mu'mineen had in his wording. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, what did he say? He said in Khutbah 42, أَمَّا اتِّبَاعُ الْهَوَى فَيَصُدُّ عَنِ الْحَقِّ. It blocks you off from the truth. The verse of the Quran that I just read says, don't follow your hawa and desires. Why? Because as a result, it will misguide you from the path of Allah. The path of Allah is the path of truth. So these two statements are the same, yeah, just different wording. وَلَا تَتَّبِعْ الْهَوَى. We have to understand, brothers and sisters, once again, I have to reiterate that merely satisfying a desire of mine doesn't mean that I'm going to be on the path of misguidance. This la tattabi' here that it says in the Quran, or ittiba'ul hawa that Amir al-Mu'mineen says, this ittiba' is different than fulfillment or satisfying of a desire. Ittiba' means blindly follow something without question, right? So what is meant is as if you are taking this as your Lord. Whatever it says goes. Whatever my desires say goes. That is the number one criterion for me. That is what is meant based on this context by la tattabi' or ittiba'ul hawa. Yeah, to make it the boss. Whatever it says goes. And that's why this next verse really clicks into place and makes sense. Surah Jathiyah verse 23, it says, أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ وَأَضَلَّهُ اللَّهُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ وَخَتَمَ عَلَى سَمْعِهِ وَقَلْبِهِ وَجَعَلَ عَلَى بَصَرِهِ غِشَاوَةً. فَمَنْ يَهْدِيهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ اللَّهِ أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. Says, do you not see the one who has taken his hawa as his Lord? Okay, so this verse is kind of letting us know what is meant when Amir al-Mu'minin says ittiba'ul hawa, or when the Quran in other places says la tattabi', don't follow. Don't follow doesn't mean don't satisfy, because sometimes you can satisfy your desires in a halal way, right? You like chicken wings, you have halal chicken wings. There's nothing wrong with that. But ittiba'ul hawa means to go by what I have a desire right now for this food, and that is it. I will follow it blindly. Wherever I can get my hands on it, I'm gonna go for it. No, no, no. See, that's ittiba'ul hawa. That's a problem. You are taking it as your Lord, as if because you blindly listen to it no matter what. The only person we're supposed to blindly follow is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even there, using the term blindly follow is wrong. Because when we have acknowledged that He is the Lord, it's not really blindly following Him anymore. If you acknowledge that something or someone is your Lord, then following them without questioning them is the most logical thing to do. It's not blindly following them. But anyway, that's one way of putting it, that you are, without question, following them, without any questioning of them. The Quran here says, have you not seen the one who takes his hawa as his Lord? Yeah. What happens as a result? وَأَضَلَّهُ اللَّهُ عَلَىٰ عِلْمٍ. As a result, and so this really clicks with the previous verse that we talked about and the statement of Amir al-Mu'minin in Nahjul Balagha, where he says it blocks you from haqq. It says, وَأَضَلَّهُ اللَّهُ عَلَىٰ عِلْمٍ. Allah will, as a result of this person who takes their Lord as their hawa, Allah will give them misguidance as a result. Because that is the effect of taking your hawa as your Lord. Cause taking your hawa as your Lord, effect misguidance. Right? That is how it is. Just like cause letting go of this pen, effect pen falling. Yeah, gravity and gravitational pull is what makes it fall. But at the end of the day, the cause was one thing, and that was the effect. And the effect of this pen falling is the result of gravity. But in reality, Allah is behind all the effects. So here in what we're talking about, the context we're in, cause taking my Lord as my hawa, effect misguidance. Who gives the misguidance? Allah gives the misguidance. But the cause was in my hands. Yeah. أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. So here it says, taking your hawa as your Lord, effect misguidance. The previous verse that said la tattabi' now, we find out because it's the same cause and effect that's mentioned in that verse, we can figure out what is meant by it. Okay? Based on this last verse we talked about. In that previous verse it said don't follow. Effect, if you do follow, what happens? You're misguided. Here in this verse now, we had the same effect, misguidance from God. What was the cause? Taking your hawa as your Lord. Okay, so in that previous verse when it says la tattabi', don't follow, it doesn't mean just don't satisfy. It means don't follow in the sense of taking it as your Lord. You see, this is how verses help us understand other verses sometimes. The same effect is in both verses, but the cause in each of them is different in its wording, and we were kind of unsure what la tattabi' means. But in this verse it says, don't take it as your Lord, meaning blindly follow it. So now we know tattabi' in that verse also meant don't blindly follow it. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. But there's a little clause here, there's a little addition here, where it says, have you not seen the one who takes his Lord as his hawa, and Allah misguides him as a result? Ala ilmin. This is important. Yes, Allah misguides him, but with knowledge, with wisdom, Allah misguides him or her. Yeah, why? What is this trying to say? It's trying to say, what it seems it's trying to say is that Allah doesn't just randomly misguide people, brothers and sisters. They have to prepare the grounds for it, for misguidance or guidance, whichever one they choose. And whatever they prepare the grounds for, Allah will give them that which they have asked for. if through practice and action they're asking for misguidance, that's what Allah is going to give them. Ala ilmin. It's not like just God randomly, give this person misguidance. No, they're the ones who brought about the cause. And of course, the effect is going to come just like gravity and my pen falling. وَخَتَمَ عَلَىٰ سَمْعِهِ. Allah will seal their ears and their hearts and will draw a veil over their eyes. So in other words, like they can't see and sense anything. And when you don't have your senses, you are going to be totally lost. So فَمَنْ يَهْدِيهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ اللَّهِ. Who out there is going to help this person and guide this person after Allah? Like the last hope is Allah, guys. The last hope in guidance and getting guidance is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so when Allah has given you misguidance, there's nothing anyone else can do. أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. Do you not wake up? Do you not take heed? So that's 2 verses so far that we had. لا تتبع الهوى من اتخذ إلهه هواه. Another verse. That's Surah Nazi'at, verses 40 to 41. It says, and this is just all showing us how just being on the other side of hawa is going to always be that key and formula to success, okay? وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. It says that this verse, or these 2 verses are saying, as for the one who is wary of the rank and status of his Lord. In other words, this person understands that when somebody's your Lord, you listen to them. All right, if I'm going to listen to God, what does that entail? Naha nafsa anil hawa. Yeah, which means he forbids the nafs of the hawa. The nafs meaning the self. This person forbids his or herself from what? From the desires and following the desires that they may have. So it's not a bad thing to have desires within us. That's how we're created. As a matter of fact, that serves the purpose of creation more. The fact that we do have these needs and desires, but it's which ones we listen to and how we listen to them, which is important. Okay, which if we make the mistake of listening to it no matter what, then that's a problem. So that's what this verse is illustrating. On one hand, you acknowledge the authority of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That itself entails you rejecting the authority of the nafs when it asks for the hawa and whatever the hawa entails. So it says, as for the one who does such, forbids the nafs of following the hawa, فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. Jannah will be their abode, will be the abode. The abode, not their abode, the abode that they will be in within, which is awesome. But as you can see here, what does akhlaq, all of akhlaq, why do we even want to have spiritual lives? We want to make it to the highest levels of Jannah. Well, Bismillah, here you go. It says, look, understand how high your Lord is, refrain from the harams and satisfying the desires in the wrong way. As a result, فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. Jannah will be the abode. I don't get why akhlaq, spirituality is so complicated for some. This is it right here. This is like, maybe one can say this is all of akhlaq right here. Understand what your Lord's all about. And as a result of that, the practical implication of that is that you will stay away from that which you desire and you will look for what God desires. And Jannah will be the abode. That's it. So 3 verses we had about this hawa. Let's go to tulul amal now. We have a couple verses here that I want to, or a verse and a hadith that I want to share with you as well. It says in Surah Hijr, verse 3, it says, ذَرْهُمْ يَأْكُلُوا وَيَتَمَتَّعُوا وَيُلْهِهِمُ الْأَمَلِ فَسَوْفَ يَعْلَمُونَ. Man, ذَرْهُمْ, leave them, abandon them. These people who are 80-year-old children, who are 50-year-old children, You can be 50 years old and still be a child. It says leave them, abandon them, so that what they can do what? Ya'kulu, they eat, so they eat. Yatamatta'u, take pleasure in life. وَيُلْهِهِمُ الْأَمَلِ, and so they eat, they have take pleasure in life, and amal, and high far-fetched hopes. Yes, make them heedless. Let them become heedless through their high far-fetched hopes. فَسَوْفَ يَعْلَمُونَ, because they shall know very soon. They will know, the path of wrongness that they were on. All right. So here you see next to these other two, which is eat and take pleasure in life, you have yulhihimul amal. Let amal, really take them to waste. Let them go to waste. Yeah, that kind of thing. Yulhihimul amal, yulhihim, I would say, kind of means like when it makes you heedless of something and lets you go to waste. Let these high hopes that they have, let them go to waste. I mean, like, look, I mean, this is not something that we need to talk about too much and explain. Just look around us and we see in this culture that we're in of just get as much gratification, self-gratification as you can, and indulge as much as you can. Like, the guy has everything that they need. Like, start worrying about yourself a little bit more, worrying about your family a little bit more. All this guy can think of is adding another card to the collection. Yeah. So that's a verse of the Quran. Then we have a hadith that I really like that's in the sayings of Nahjul Balagha. Number 36, according to this one here. It says, Man atal al-amal asa al-amal. Man atal al-amal asa al-amal, with an ayn. So the first amal is with hamza. The second one is with ayn. Now, in our cultures, lots of times we will pronounce these two the same, but in Arabic, amal and amal are different words, totally different words. They might sound a little similar. They're totally different words because they come from different roots. All right, so, but it's cool how Imam Ali, the wording that he's used here, is using these two because they're very similar, yet worlds apart these are from each other. All right, so man atal al-amal, whosoever lengthens, stretches their hopes, yeah, overdoes it when it comes to having hopes and high hopes. This person, asa al-amal, will fall short when it comes to actions and getting stuff done. Now, this is pretty cool actually, and this is something that just came to my mind now. It's not necessarily the case that the Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam is talking about akhirah. That for sure is a given, okay? That for sure is a given. The fact that if I have far-fetched hopes in this life, my goals that I want to achieve are for a person that has to have at least 500 years of life in this world. If I have something like that, then I forget my akhirah. It ruins my akhirah. I will not do enough amal and good deeds for my akhirah because all I can think of is achieving those goals that I've set for myself. And maybe shaitan helped me in that. That for sure Imam Ali is speaking about. But I think we can add to this because it's a very general statement Imam Ali is making here. He doesn't make it this one about the akhirah. That this can even ruin one's life in this world as well. A person who has goals that they probably will not be able to reach and fulfill. Usually this person will mess up in life. They will not be good when it comes to their actions in this life, meaning that those actions don't yield results. Like, perfectionists are like this. Perfectionists want to get something done perfectly. It reaches a point where this person will put it off so much. Why are procrastinators lots of times perfectionists? Because the hopes they have for the accomplishment that they want to make, those hopes are so far-fetched that this person knows it too. That person knows it themselves, that like, this is not something I can do in addition to all the other commitments I have in life. And so what happens is they end up not doing it at all. Or if they do it, they stop midway or whatever. So Amir al-Mu'mineen's statement might even apply to this life as well, that if you want to have a prosperous life in this life, have reasonable goals. Yes, shoot for the stars, but stars that are reachable. Not the end of the universe. Don't shoot for the end of the universe. You won't make it. You don't have the vessel for it. That's one hadith in Nahjul Balagha regarding these high, far-fetched hopes. Another one in Nahjul Balagha, khutbah number 86, he also talks about this. وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ الْأَمَلَ يُسْهِي الْعَاقِلَ وَيُنْسِي الذِّكْرَ فَأَكْذِبُوا الْأَمَلَ فَإِنَّهُ غُرُورٌ وَصَاحِبُهُ مَغْرُورٌ. This is also, I think, full of wisdom, this line right here of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. I don't say that because it's Amir al-Mu'minin. Really, I feel it's full of wisdom. He says, and know that having hopes, what does it do? It will misguide the aql of an individual. What does that mean? I think what it means is when a person has put all of their eggs in a certain basket, and they're like, you know what, this is the goal that I want to reach, although it's far-fetched, although it's not realistic. What happens is this person's aql is done. This person isn't using reason and intellect anymore. Like, dude, everyone is telling you this is not possible, right? Given your circumstances. I want to be the next this person. I want to be the next that person. Well, you, with all of your specifics, all right, it does not seem that you're going to be able to accomplish this. Okay? Hate to break it to you, but let's be a little more realistic here. No, I want to make sure this and that. What's happening in reality is this guy is canceling out whatever their mind and reason is telling them. Yeah? Because all that matters for them, I have to make it. Sometimes even it might have to do with marriage, right? This guy or a girl wants to marry somebody that is way out of their league. I hate to use that terminology. Okay? And it's just not going to work out. You're from different cultures, you're from different backgrounds. I don't know, there was like some animosity before, whatever. I'm just using, I don't know what kind of example to give. I don't want you to hear this and say, oh, are you implying that different cultures can't marry within each other? No, I'm not saying that at all. That's not a problem. And we've had that during the Prophet's time even. And that is not one of the teachings of Islam. But all in all, sometimes, yeah, you will find that a person is willing to put off marriage for 10, 15 years to maybe make it to the person that they have in mind. And by the way, sometimes they do. If they make it, then they notice that, oh, this person might not have been the best person. All right. But anyway, they make it. But 10, 15 years of struggle, of fighting with parents, of a lot of different things. Yeah. Everyone's telling them, like, dude, this is not the thing for you. Just give up. Okay. This person puts aside reason and ration and says, there's no matter what, I have to make it here. And that affects them negatively in a ton of ways. So once again, I'm not saying don't try. That's not what I'm trying to say here. I'm not saying don't shoot for the stars. I'm not saying things like that. But there is an amount that we know, there is a framework that we have to stay within that reason dictates to us. When 20 people out there are telling us that we're wrong in something, then we have to think about it again instead of having some high hopes that we're going to make it eventually. Yeah. At least revisit it and see if it's realistic or not. Yes, I know you will always have those exceptional cases, yeah, where a person did make it, but a lot of other people, they don't make it. They don't make it. Why? Because they need 300 years of life for that goal that they have. This is all I'm saying, brothers and sisters. And I know I keep repeating myself because there is a fine line here. I want to make sure that I get this across. Yeah. Try hard. Knock on 100 doors. That's fine. I'm not saying don't. Right? But sometimes there's a 1% chance that even if you knock on 100% doors, it's going to work out. Yeah. Just use that reason and ration as well. The rationalization. Okay. So Imam Ali here, he says, having these far-fetched hopes, it just does ta'til of the aql, cancels out this aql and intellect that a person has. Yunsi al-dhikr, makes you forget remembrance, in which I think dhikr here means remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because there's such a goal out there that you want to reach, but you just can't with the 100 years of life that you have, and you're trying to figure out how to do it. Because it requires 300 years and you're trying to squeeze 300 years into 100 years and figure it out. So all you're thinking about now is that goal that you want to reach. You forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That was the point of this life. Allah was the point of this life. فَأَكْذِبُ الْأَمَلِ. Amir al-Mu'mineen says it very nicely here. He says, so أَكْذِبُ comes from كذب, which means to take these high hopes as a lie, as lying to you. When you do a takdeeb of someone, or you do here it says ikdab of someone, that means that you see them as a liar. You see them as lying to you. You don't take them serious as someone who's telling the truth. Akdhibu al-amal. These high hopes that you have that are far-fetched, unrealistic, and unnecessary even sometimes. Who cares if I have a nine-figure a nine-digit or nine-figure amount in my bank account? I can live off of 6 or 7 figures, you know? I want to make sure it hits the billions. Like, I've put pictures of all the billionaires of the world around my room so that I see them all the time, reminding me what my goal is in life. Man, you are off. I'm sorry. You don't need $1 billion to make it to Jannah. You can make it to Jannah with 1 million, or maybe a few 100,000 or something. Right? You're going to leave the rest for others to take as inheritance, and you haven't taken care of yourself and your akhirah. Unrealistic. Akdhibu al-amal. Unrealistic and unnecessary. You don't need $1 billion. Although that is super success, but you don't need $1 billion. Once again, it's good to try to bring in as much wealth as I can to help myself out, my family out, and my community out. That's important, yes, but not at the price of this becoming something that does ta'atil of my aql and shuts down my intellect and makes me forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. All right? فَأَكْذِبُوا الْأَمَلِ. See amal as something that's lying in your face. That's what Amir al-Mu'mineen says here. Amal and high hopes tell you that, look, you're going to make it. Those far-fetched, unrealistic hopes. You're going to make it. Imam Ali says, no, you tell those hopes that you're lying. Yeah, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it because it's unrealistic. Right? Not that I'm not going to try. Yes, there are some goals out there that I can reach in 20 years. I will plan for them from now, and I will start chipping away at those goals so that after 20 years, I have reached them. I will study hard in school. I will try to go out and figure out a business for myself, a small business, bigger business, scale things even when the time is right, and so on. I will do all of that because these are realistic. And the Imams themselves taught me that I have to do this. But I'm not going to squeeze no 300 years and 100 years of lifetime. Right? These hopes that some people have. Akdibu al-amal. You're lying to me, oh hopes, making me think like it's possible. No, you're not possible. So I'm not going to compromise my akhirah for you. فَإِنَّهُ غُرُورٌ. Amal tricks you, fools you, is dangerous, Amir al-Mu'mineen says. وَصَاحِبُهُ. The one who espouses these hopes is maghrur, is the fooled one. Right? So we can tell he's not talking about just having good hope in life, trying to make it in life and all that kind of stuff and living the dream, kind of what they say. No. He's not talking about those. He's talking about, because a lot of people have this, brothers and sisters. I don't want us to hear all of this and be like, well, no one's thinking of doing 300 years worth of time in 100 years. These are just examples I'm giving. We really have to revisit some of the goals that we have set for us in life. So there's a very cool story I like of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It says that he one day he had three sticks that he had. He put one in front of him. Now, of course, his companions are there too. He puts one of those sticks in front of him, or stuck it into the ground. Then stuck another one next to him, like a little bit over, but within his arm's reach. And then he put one way far out there. So then he comes back to his companions. He's like, "Do you know what these represent? Do you know what's going on here? What am I trying to say?" They said, "Allah and His Messenger know better." In other words, tell us, no, what is it? What are you trying to say here? What's going on here? He said, look, this stick that's in front of me, yeah, represents insan, represents mankind. The second stick that's within an arm's reach, yeah, that is my ajal. That is my death. That is the expiration date on my life. That's where it's going to end. So it's like an arm's reach away. And he says that third stick, though, that's very far away, those are my high, far-fetched hopes. This is beautiful. Seriously, this is beautiful. He says, those are my high hopes that if I were to try to make it to grab that last stick over there, this stick in the middle, which is my ajal, which is my death, will be a barrier between me and those. This is what it's all about, brothers and sisters. These hadiths and verses of the Quran that we're reading right now, that's what they're trying to say. Like, be cognizant of this matter. Don't let it blind you. Amir al-Mu'mineen, man, he said it so nice where he said, Yushi al-aql. It puts your aql in error. When you don't have the variables down right, you'll get the equation wrong. The answer will be wrong. Right? Be cognizant of all of these variables together. Look at your commitments, look at your situation and circumstances, look at your goal, look at how necessary your goal is. Or else, before you know it, as you're reaching for that far away stick, that little middle, the stick that was in the middle, that was a barrier between you and your hopes, is going to hit you first, which is your death. And now, before you know it, you're leaving this dunya empty-handed. That's why Amir al-Mu'mineen, again, in another khutbah of his, khutbah 81, he says, Ayyuhan nas, az-zahada, don't be too attached to this dunya, have zuhd. Qisr al-amal, have short, not long, stretched out, far-fetched, high hopes. No. Have short ones. In other words, if I'm going to reword it, I'll say realistic hopes, realistic goals. وَالشُّكْرَ عِنْدَ النِّعَمِ, and be grateful for the blessings that Allah has given you. التَّوَرُّ عِنْدَ الْمَحَارِمِ, and stay away from the harams of Allah. This is the formula for success in this life and the hereafter. There's a story also that, I don't want to go over my time, but I think it's good if I mention it here as well. And then we'll end after that, once we finish the khutbah. And it's a famous one, some of you might have heard this as well. That during the time of Harun al-Rashid, he asks for his people to find someone for him that has seen the Prophet ﷺ in his lifetime. So a person like this will have to have been very young, when he saw the Prophet or she saw the Prophet, and has to have lived a long life, to have lived till the time of Harun al-Rashid, the Abbasid Khalifa. And so they find this old, frail person that you don't even know if he's alive or dead. That's how old he is. They bring him to Harun al-Rashid, and Harun speaks to him and asks him to tell his story. He's like, yeah, I was a kid. And do you have anything to share with us that the Prophet said when you were in the presence of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? This old man, he says, yeah, I was a kid. My dad took my hand and took me to the Prophet. And when we were there, the Prophet said something. He said a hadith. And so I will, gift that hadith to you. What is that hadith? That يَشِيبُ ابْنُ آدَمْ وَيَشُبُّ فِيهِ خَصْلَتَانِ الْحِرْص وَطُولُ الْأَمَلِ. That the Prophet ﷺ, he said that as mankind gets older and older, two traits within him or her get younger and younger. Number one, hirs, obsession to have things. And two, tulul amal, those stretched out, far-fetched hopes that one might have in this dunya. He said, I heard the Prophet say this. And so Harun al-Rashid, he really rejoices and he's happy to hear this, and he gives a little sack of gold coins or whatever to this old man as they're carrying him out in like this basket that he was in. So he can't even walk. That's how old he is. Now, this is the interesting part. As they're taking him out, he says, and they take him out. He's like, no, no, I gotta ask Harun al-Rashid something. Don't take me yet. They're like, look, you had enough time with him. Time to go. No, 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 I gotta ask him. They take him back to Harun al-Rashid. He says, Harun, one question for you. This payment that you just gave me, is this a one-time payment or is this going to be recurring? Is this going to be a recurring payment? And so Harun al-Rashid here, they say he laughs and he says, Sadaqa Rasulullah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was right when he said, man gets older and older and within him gets younger and younger. Two traits. Hirs, wanting more, of this dunya, and high hopes. Like, who, this old man, he is about to die. Like, what do you even need the money for? Yet you're still thinking about this. A person who in their youth doesn't start working on themselves, brothers and sisters, or whenever they wake up to this reality, even if it's in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, it's never too late. It's better if you're younger to give yourself this Quranic perspective of this life is too short to put to invest too much into it, in the sense of everything, of my thoughts, of my time and energy. No, no, balance. Now, sometimes you live in a place where you will have to give it as much as you can, or else you just won't make it. Well, that Allah wants from you. But lots of times this is not the case, and you will find that people have certain hopes, certain goals and aims that they've set that seem more secular than anything else. Why? Because they're not realistic. These are things that Amir al-Mu'mineen is waking us up to. These are realities that he wants us to keep in mind. We have to keep all the variables in mind when we're dealing with this equation of dunya and akhirah. And so Amir al-Mu'mineen in this khutbah, number 28, after he makes that important point of, I fear two things for you because they can ruin everything for you, blindly following the hawa and having those far-fetched goals in life. After that, he concludes the whole khutbah with this: تزودوا في الدنيا من الدنيا ما تحرزون به أنفسكم غدا. People, that you can feel, you sense that fatherly tone again. And, oh people, تزودوا, take provision while you are in this dunya, from this dunya. Take provision. تزودوا في الدنيا من الدنيا. Take provision while you're in this dunya, from this dunya, which shows that this dunya is a very important thing. It is the place in which, and that from which, you have to take to do what? ما تحرزون به أنفسكم غدا. That which you can use as a hirz for you tomorrow, meaning in the day, in the hereafter. As a hirz, meaning as a protection for you. Something that will bring you security, aman, for you on the day of judgment. يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ. On that day where nothing is going to be of any avail to those who are empty-handed, those who had mal and wealth in this life, those who had children in this life, whatever it was that they had of assets, they will leave it all behind here. So yes, this dunya is for us to be in and to take from. That is how much this dunya is worth. To live within it so we can take from it. What are we supposed to take from it of provision? تَزَوَّدُوا فَإِنَّ خَيْرَ الزَّادِ التَّقْوَى. The Quran said it and we've already talked about it. How much taqwa, how much obedience of God and satisfaction of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala we take from it. That's all that matters. That is the provision for this journey. And alhamdulillah, with that, we end this khutbah of Nahjul Balagha, I would say one of the most important ones when it comes to us waking up. And it's not a bad idea to every now and then take a look at this khutbah number 28, to keep ourselves in check. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. And my salams to those of you who have tuned in as well. And inshallah, everyone's staying safe in these days that we are off. And if there are no questions, as I can see, I ask all of you for your du'as and wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.